Good day, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of the IVSA podcast. And we're back again with Natalia, June, Najiha, and myself, Jaya. On today's episode, we would like to give a warm welcome to Dr. Go Soon Heng as our guest speaker. Dr. Go Soon Heng, a graduate of Doctor of Veterinary Medicine (DVM) from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine (FPV), University Malaysia Kelantan (UMK). Before pursuing his doctorate, he was a companion animal veterinarian in a private practice. He went on to do his PhD in the field of veterinary epidemiology and public health, focusing on the risk analysis of leptospirosis among dogs and their handlers. He is currently a lecturer at the Department of Veterinary Preclinical Science (FPV UMK), as well as the coordinator of the Exotic Animal Teaching Lab (ExoTel) FPV UMK. With a growing passion for exotic animal medicine, he often works with various species of small animals, reptiles, and amphibians as a clinician at the Veterinary Medicine Teaching Hospital UMK (HPV UMK). As budding entomologists with his wife, they are also involved with the conservation of arthropods. To start off, could Doctor please enlighten us on how your interest in this study of exotic animal flourished and what has been your motivation to pursue in this field of studies?
All right. Thank you, Jaya. Okay, first and foremost, thank you again to IVSA Kelantan for this opportunity to basically share a bit of my experiences with this group of animals, these exotic animals. So where do I start? Okay, so regarding to your question about my interest, where did I begin having my interest for exotic animals? So I think for me, I would say I'm a slow bloomer, a late bloomer in the field of exotic medicine, because previously, as if you noticed, Jaya did mention about my previous history working as a private practitioner, companion animal veterinarian in the past. So previously I was more focused towards companion animals. So as after graduating from UMK, for the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine UMK, I went into private practice and dealing with companion animals. And then during that time itself, I did happen to get the opportunity to deal with a few exotic cases, and but at that time I did not know much about exotic animals. I did not have that much of experience, but along the way, as I handled more and more cases, I sort of built up that interest. But then when I thought back, I reflected back on how I learned exotic medicine back in vet school. I realized that everything was very superficial, and then there was not much hands-on. So because of that, I realized that okay, maybe this is an opportunity for me to do something about it. So that's the reason why I went on my own initiative. I started to learn about it, and of course, as a vet student, owning exotic animals wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to come by exotic animals because at that time it was still a very new industry. And because of that, of course, the prices of these animals to own an exotic animal, it was expensive to begin with. To even buy an animal, to obtain an animal is already is already taking out a big cost already. So as a student, even as a new veterinarian, it was beyond what I could do at that time. Of course, as I worked on, I started to collect some funds, and then that's where I started to go into that field by being an owner myself. Because for me, that's one of the opportunities by owning the animal itself, that you can actually learn more about it. So from then onwards, I realized there was a need for me to learn, because that's where I realized that okay, as a veterinarian, I feel that I have to be versatile and to be able to treat as many animals as possible. So I saw that opportunity, and then I decided to go down that road. Although despite not having much information at the beginning, but I took the courage to learn it on my own, and then by learning through practice, I would say. So by treating cases, and then by taking care of my animals as well, I read up, and then I basically through experience itself that I grew my passion for exotic animals.
Thank you, Doctor. That's really inspiring to all of us. Okay, for the next question, I'll pass it to Natalia.
All right, thank you, Jaya. We will now touch on our topic of the day. So, Dr. Go, before purchasing or rearing exotic pets like hamsters, tortoises, geckos, sugar gliders, and others, What should an owner prepare for when wanting to care for exotic animals?
All right. Very. I would say that's a very interesting question. I think that's a very fundamental question as well. I think it was one that most people, most potential pet owners, not just exotic pet owners in general, will want to know before going into it. Okay. For me, I think to put it into perspective, I guess because they're dealing with a living creature, so animals are living creatures, right? So I would say the basic thing is to know. The first question is to ask is not about how much is the cost involved in taking care of the animals. No, it's about how long would this commitment actually be. Because for me, as a veterinarian, as also as a pet owner myself, the first thing you need to know is how long would you be keeping this animal with you. Okay, so I think the first question you should be asking yourself is basically the lifespan of the animal. How long can this particular animal species or animal actually live? Because like what Natalia did mention about giving examples like hamsters, guinea pigs. So various different species of animals will have different lifespan. So that's the main thing you need to know, because obviously it's only logical and it's only simple that you can look at the longer the animal lives, the higher the cost will be. All right. So every single day, every single month, every single year goes by, more and more costs will be involved. And of course, if all everything pans out well, that means the animal's healthy, there are no medical issues, there's no other additional commitments, no other additional complication that comes along, then yes, then you can roughly estimate how much of an investment that you need to put into. Depends on how long the animal lives. But if let's say things don't pan out well, then by chance that your pet animal falls sick, and then that's where things get a bit complicated as well. That's the first question you need to ask. But of course, extending from that, knowing that the longer the animal lives, the more costs involved. The second question then becomes is what are the requirements basically of, again, as a veterinarian, or even as any potential pet owner, you would want to give the best to your animals. Okay, you will want your pets to be healthy, not just to be healthy, to be happy in a way. So when they, obviously when the animal's healthy, the animals is automatically happy as well. But being happy is not just being healthy is not the only thing that's governing the animal from being happy. There are also other additional requirements. So that those additional requirements, that's where the tricky part. I would say the tricky part. That's where things get a bit interesting. I would say I'll put it as in the phrase of interesting, because that's where you get to experience a lot of diversity with exotic animals. That's one of the things that got me into exotic animal and medicine. I would say keeping exotic animals in the first place, because of the diversity, because you feel that you are very flexible. You're not rigid. You're not confining yourself to one particular species. So because of that, so that's where you get to experience different requirements of different animals. So like for example, back to the examples that were given. So maybe like small mammals like hamsters and guinea pig will not require will require more attention compared to maybe reptiles. Tortoises, snakes, for example, may not require the day-to-day attention as how a small mammal, hamsters, gerbils, and guinea pigs require those attention. Because again, knowing how the animal behaves and in catering to that requirement, because certain animals require added touch to it. So those are the things. So basically, knowing, back to what I mentioned earlier, knowing the lifespan and also knowing the behavior and the basic necessities that animal requires itself. With that in hand, then I would say the whole experience will become a smoother process.
All right, Doctor. Thank you so much for your explanation. So the third question will be from June.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. So, Doctor, for the third question, we would like to know what are the specifications that people usually overlook in owning and taking care of small exotic animals?
Okay, I will guess the thing that people tend to overlook is actually in terms of the enrichment. I would say it is extension for what I mentioned earlier in the second question about knowing the behavior and the requirements of the animal. Okay, because okay, requirements, I would say there are two basic things that any animal requires. One thing obviously is the nutrition. First thing that comes to any owner's mind would be the nutrition. What does the animal actually need? What does the animal feed on? What do they like to eat? So that's the very basic question. So obviously any living animal, like I mentioned from the beginning, we are dealing with living animals. So living creatures, you need to feed them. Otherwise, don't get enough food, then they tend to starve. Okay, so that's the basic thing itself. Okay, but from that onwards, knowing the food, that's the part that most people will generally get it right. But the part that people tend to overlook is what happens. It's not just about giving the best diet or giving the correct diet to a particular animal, but it's also about the attention and the I wouldn't say the intimacy, but the connection between you and also your pet animal. Okay, like I did mention in the second question about knowing the behavior. Okay, this comes into play when we talk about giving the connection, the I would say the intimacy between you and your pet. That's where the behavior, knowing the behavior comes in, because knowing the behavior, you know how a certain animal interacts with I would say interacts with the environment, it interacts with humans. Not every animal likes to have physical contact with their pet owners. For example, again, small mammals, your hamsters, your hamsters, your guinea pigs, your rabbits, they tend to be tolerable. They tend to tolerate human contact. So those animals require you to constantly be in contact with them, and then providing them toys and places to hide. So basically, the house, I would say the enclosure, the enclosure of the animals needs to be in a way that it can interact well. So that's where you need to understand how does that particular animal interact with its environment. Okay, and with you being part of the environment as well, as opposed to certain other animals, reptiles, amphibians, and whatnot. They do not really tolerate. It's not really they don't tolerate, it's just that they don't feel comfortable being handled all that much. So for those animals, that so your physical contact with that particular animal may not benefit the animal that much. So that you need to know. Then is with that being with that said, you need to put in the extra effort to make and because since you're not going to interact much with the animal, so the immediate enclosure, the housing of the animal has to be as optimal as possible. You need to provide all the natural layout, the heights, the places for it. You can even place branches of trees for the animal to climb onto, and to provide places for them to exercise and things like that, because again, you are not going to take the animal out that much. So what is inside the home of the animal plays a very big role, as opposed to for the smaller mammals. For smaller mammals, yes, your physical contact is the added value to it. You have to give the physical contact. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time trying to bond with them. They are more, I would say, they are more domesticated. So the more domesticated species are the ones that you need to interact with them. The ones that are considered more wild, I would say inverted commas, wild, reptiles and whatnot, they are considered more wild. They don't tolerate human contact as much. So those animals have to be taken care of differently. So it all goes back to knowing the behavior as well. So you know how the animal behaves. So when you talk about knowing behavior, more often or not, you need to look back at how originally these animals are in the wild. So whether, for example, certain animals tend to be sociable animals, they are not solitary animals, so they're sociable, they need to be kept in pairs. Certain animals are solitary animals, then they need to be kept alone. So all those things, so knowing the behavior, knowing how the animals are in their natural environment will clue you into what the animal actually needs. So sometimes, most of the time, I would, as a veterinarian, I like to advise owners to keep it, I would say keep it natural. Keep it as close to the natural environment, to the original environment as possible, so that will help to reduce the stress level. Because sometimes not every animal not every animal can tolerate you putting artificial things into the environment. They may not be familiar with it. So in those scenarios, so it comes. There's a lot of I would say experiment in a way, experiment in the sense that you need to try out different things. So not every single setting works all the time, and also that's not even touching about individual differences from one. It maybe you have two, three different animals of the same species, but not every animal reacts the same way to a particular environment. So you have to be flexible. So again, flexible and you have to try a lot of new things. So yes, it requires a lot of experimentation in a way that you can put it as experimentation. You cannot be too rigid. You have to be flexible and ready to react to change at the moment's notice. Like you see animals not doing so well in that particular environment, you have to start thinking, okay, is it something wrong that I did? Should changes be made to the environment? So that's based. So again, down to that requirement, the behavioral requirement, social requirement of the animal. That's the one that people tend to overlook. They tend to just give the bare minimum, which is the diet. The first thing that people will normally give is the diet. All right. So that's that, in that sense, that's the one that's still considered much lacking lah, that people tend to overlook. That hopefully I'm trying to put it out there so that people are aware about it.
Thank you so much, doctor, for sharing such an important tips in taking care exotic animals. So the next question will become from JJ.
Hi, Doctor. Thank you, June. So for the fourth question, what would Doctor like to emphasize on first-time exotic pet owners before getting an exotic pet?
Okay, I guess I did mention before that knowing the lifespan and all that. Yeah, well, that having knowledge, having information plays a big role. But in order to get that knowledge and get that information, the first thing you need to do is to basically before taking up any commitment, not just as a pet owner, any decision that you make in life, you should always have all the facts ready before you make a decision. So never ever for example, get into pet ownership as an impulse. I cannot overemphasize this, that more often than not, people tend to make harsh, drastic decisions when it comes to becoming a pet owner. So it's always a spur of the moment kind of thing. That's like, oh, look, this looks so cool, this looks interesting. That imagine having this animal at home. So with those kind of emotions that they without prior, I would say prior research lah. Okay, as a scientific person, research plays a big role. But for probably for layman, the research may not be that valuable. But basically, that research is actually just for you to have all the facts, all the knowledge at your disposal before making any decision lah. So again, reading up, talking to people. It may not be just reading. I mean, it may not be like searching on the internet for written facts and whatnot. Sometimes it's just talking to a fellow pet owner, or hopefully it's an experienced pet owner that knows and has been doing this for many years and knows the do's and don'ts, the ups and downs of owning a pet. Okay, especially owning an exotic pet, owning cats and dogs, companion animals. There's a different set of challenges, different sets of requirements. But as an exotic pet owner, the exotic actually factors in as well. So when something is exotic, more often than not, you don't have that much reading material, that much of information accessible to you on the internet or on social media for that matter. So most of the time you have to talk to people. So you first need to do that, take the effort to talk to people, get to know how's it like becoming an exotic pet owner, and then from then onwards, hopefully you get the, well, sometimes it can be negative as well when you when you decide to talk to people, because not everyone will give you the correct knowledge. So that's where the proper source of it is important. Okay, like I did mention earlier that becoming a exotic animal veterinarian, there are not many resources available. There are not many people that you can turn to ask for help. It's very limited. I'll be saying in terms of Malaysia, but I think anywhere and around the world, there are still a lot of limitations in this. So again, a lot of it you have to make the judgment call yourself. So again, so of course, let's say for example, you don't, in a situation where there are not many people, experienced people, or even people with any level of experience around you. So you have to still go further, take the time. Don't jump into becoming an exotic pet owner too quickly. You just basically survey around, talk to people, get people's inputs on it, get as much input as possible. If you say you're not sure whether that input is correct or wrong, okay, fine. Seek for a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion before making a final decision. Okay, that's if you don't have the correct source to refer to. But of course, let's say you have a friend, or you know a veterinarian and I would say an expert, an experienced person who has dealt with exotic animals, then that would be a recommended source to get your information from, to get your advice from. Okay, so that means again, have that information ready. So when we talk about information, what information is important, one of it that I did mention earlier, which is knowing the lifespan. The longer the animal lives, basically the higher the cost involved as well. But the second thing that comes into play would be knowing about the behavior. So if you know the behavior, know the social requirements, the welfare requirements. Okay, welfare is a very big word. Okay, but in to keep things simple, when you talk about welfare for exotic animals or any animals for that matter, is just that to put the animal in an environment as close to its natural environment as possible, so it does not feel that it's trapped inside a small space, because it has all the necessities there to interact, and then to be a how say, for it to show its natural behavior, for it not to feel confined and feel trapped and feel how say, not to be able to express its normal behavior, its normal I would say its features, its normal interactions with the environment. So if you understand all that, then I would say then you are one step closer to becoming a I would say a good and ethical pet owner. Yeah, so those are things. So but it all comes down to basic knowledge, getting that knowledge and refining that knowledge, filtering, making a judgment call what's right and what's wrong. That's why the more knowledge you have, the more people you talk to, then you start to be able to see the big picture. Okay, what are the things that you have, again, you have to make the judgment call, so because no one's going to make the judgment call for you. You have to decide on your own that, okay, I think I have enough facts, I think I'm able to make the decision whether I should take it up or not. Because the minute you take it up, then you are in it for the long run already. Okay, there's no, I wouldn't say there's no turning back. It's just that it's once you're in, then you really made a commitment really. Okay, so I hope for the sake of your future pets that you are there to you're there for the long run. You're there to be with your pets until the very end. Hopefully you do not give up on your pets halfway through lah. So that's one thing. So that commitment, and so that commitment will reflect back on you as.
All right, doctor. So based on doctor's experience, what are the challenges when it comes to caring for these exotic animals?
Okay, right. So challenges. I'm guessing challenges is, well, I'll put in the context of as a pet owner and also as a veterinarian here living in Malaysia. Is I'll be honest, it's still a bit it's challenging in the sense that you in terms of providing for the animal. Okay, because if you were to search, read up on certain things online, and then more often than not, most of the information available is from a different setting. It's from a different country. It may be from the Americas. It may be from Europe, from Australia, somewhere not within the confines on your own home country. So knowing that it's difficult to apply those knowledge, whether it could be the feeding regime, it can be what kind of food is available, and then the kind of equipment, the enrichment that you can put into the enclosure, into the house of the animal may not be available to you. So but you know that your pet animal needs those things to be there for it to be able to interact, and then for it to act normally, naturally in the environment. But knowing that you need those things, but you are unable to provide for it, so that becomes a hurdle for you to overcome, because you need to provide, and then so basically you need to be creative, you need to think out of the box. So sometimes a bit of creativity goes a long way. You need to look at what the animal requires, and then what is missing, and what you think you need to give, and then what ways that you can provide it by obviously because it's impossible to get it, to buy it from the market. So you need to design it, you need to build it yourself. So sometimes a bit of creativity does really help. So you need to, again, with that creativity, you need to try out that particular I would say arrangement. Maybe you need to try a few different arrangements and see which one fits the best. Okay, I'll give an example. Okay, one good example will be, For example, keeping guinea pigs. Okay, so keeping guinea pigs, you need basically certain toys for the guinea pigs to play around with, even certain, I would say, certain caves, hiding a hideout for the animal itself. But sometimes as the animal grows bigger, sometimes the ones that you used to have may not be suitable anymore, and then you need to get a bigger one. But sometimes in the market, most of the sizes are not suitable. So sometimes you have to be creative. You may want to design it out of, maybe you want to build your own hideout for the animal. You may put together a few pieces of wood, and then you can build your own hideout for your animal. So things like that you have to really look around you, what's available to you, what's at your disposal, and then use that to your advantage. But of course, that creativity needs to be built. You need to be a creative person for you to be able to solve these issues. Not just about the enclosure environment itself, it can be about food as well. So sometimes the available food, the commercial food, people tend to want to go for commercial diets, but not every commercial diet is suitable. Okay, so sometimes you have to go down to the basics again, the fundamentals, knowing that, okay, what this animal eats, what kind of vegetables this animal is able to take, what kind of fruits this animal is able to take. So with that knowledge at hand, then you can mix and match what's available to you at the time. Maybe, for example, certain things comes at certain seasons. So maybe for this particular month of the year, you may not be able to give this particular fruit, for example. And then the following months, you may be able to provide because it comes into season. So those kind of things is important. So that means before to be able to do that, to be able to play around with what's available, you need to know what's available first to begin with. If you know what's available to you, then only you can start to be creative and look at. So try not to, I would say, depend too much on what's available in the market, commercial items. So try to be resourceful. I would say, yeah, that's a good word, resourceful, creativity and resourcefulness. So because you know what's available to you, then you can use it to your advantage, turn it to your advantage. So that's one of the main challenges that any exotic pet owner has to overcome.
All right, understood, Doctor. So the next question will be coming from June.
Okay, thank you, Natalia. So, Doctor, for the 6 questions, we would like to know, is there any vaccination or preventive medicine that can be given to exotic pets to prevent them from certain diseases?
Okay, that's actually a very it's a tough question to answer. Tough question in the sense that I don't really like to give that answer, to give a response to that, because unfortunately in Malaysia, I would say in Malaysia, in the context of Malaysia, no, there are no vaccination. Okay, I'll comment on vaccination first, because vaccination overseas, yes, there are certain vaccines available, like for birds, for example, but when you talk about the context of Malaysia, unfortunately, no. Why? One reason, why the vaccination is not available for exotic animals is because of the the volume of animals actually requiring it. Yes, there are a lot of exotic pet owners out there, but most of them are not aware that, okay, animals need okay, when you talk about vaccination and deworming, that's basic preventive healthcare. So that basically you're giving something to prevent the occurrence of a particular disease. So most people are still unaware that animals still need basically need the administration of such drugs or such provisions that needs to be provided to them. So they are unaware of it. So because of that, there is no demand for it. So whenever there's no demand for it, it's difficult to bring a particular vaccine into Malaysia because of that fact. Okay, but hopefully, I'm call me on optimist. I would say I'm still hoping that in the future that companies do bring in such I would say such medications to be given and administered to our exotic pet animals. But that's in terms of vaccination. But of course, in terms of very basic preventive healthcare, deworming, yes, deworming is available. But again, there is not a specific dewormer that's I would say specific to a particular species. So again, a lot of okay, in this case, it's not really much of trial and error. There's a lot of I would say usage. That means to say that you need to be doing a lot of read up. So that this is in terms of a veterinarian where you want to administer certain drugs, then yes, you need to do your read up first prior to giving any medications. But there are medications available in the market, and then but of course more often than not, people are not really giving it, or I mean veterinarians are not really giving it in a sense, because again they are not experienced enough. They don't have, not, I wouldn't say they are not experienced, they are not confident enough to be willing to try it out. Okay, so most of the time they will there will be a misconception when they're telling their pet owners that okay, there's actually no deworming available, no vaccination available, and then you just have to depend on just basic feeding, and then proper management, and then I think hopefully your animal will be healthy in that sense. But of course, if they were to go the step further and then to ask around, there are available drugs, especially in terms of deworming lah. But unfortunately, vaccination is still not available at the moment right now. So again, still hoping that with the growing industry, the growing number of exotic pet owners, with the awareness that the pet owners are bringing along with them, that they will be able to push for the importation of such drugs to be used for our pets here in Malaysia as well.
I see. Thank you so much, Doctor, for the answer. I will pass the next question to Jaya.
All right, Doctor. Before we end our session, could Doctor share the take-home message to the public, exotic pet owners, as well as the vet students?
Okay, I think that there are a few parts to this question. I think I'll address them separately. So the first thing, when it comes to addressing the general public and also potential or future exotic pet owners. Okay, I think I mentioned multiple times throughout this interview that the knowledge, I think I will, this is overemphasized, and I'll still emphasize this again, that knowledge plays a very big role before making any decision to be a pet owner. Okay, again, so do your due diligence, do your reading, have all the facts ready for you, and then you have to reflect back. Basically, when you say reflecting, you have to ask yourself, look yourself in the mirror. Am I ready? Am I able to be the best exotic pet owner I can be? Okay, if there's even the slightest I would say hesitation, you have to revisit back whatever information's available to you. What was the final decision before actually making it? So yeah, you need to keep reflecting yourself. Do it multiple times until you're really sure that you, without any hesitation, without any doubt, that okay, I'm ready to be an exotic pet owner. Yeah. So with those information, then you can have a educated, a better judgment on your decision to becoming a pet owner lah. But of course, it may be a long journey getting the information. It may take months, it may even take years for you to have all the information ready, having all the information at your disposal. So, but again, don't rush into it. Okay, I did mention about purchasing animals, deciding to be a pet owner and spur of the moment, at the impulse. So do not make that mistake. Okay, take your time. Don't rush it through. Read it through, and then again, if of course the main thing comes into play is of course your financial status. If you want to provide a lot of things, that comes with a monetary, I wouldn't say a monetary strain, but it comes with investment. You need to invest, you need to put money into it. And then of course, are you able to continuously be giving those things to your particular pet throughout the duration of its lifespan? If yes, then by all means go ahead. You would be able to provide the best that your animal requires as well. And then of course, not to forget, when providing something, is not just providing whenever the animal is healthy. You need to provide whenever the animal is unhealthy and sick as well. So veterinary care, preventive health care, vaccination, deworming, things like that, whatever that's available to you, give the very best to your pet animals. Okay, so that's in terms of any potential pet owners and the general public. So read up, have the knowledge with you. Okay, and to my beloved vet students, the message to you is I would say, for those who are really interested in exotic animal medicine, okay, do read up, learn up as much as you can throughout your 5 years. You may not have You may not get all the experience, the hands-on experience that you wish to get within 5 years of being at a vet school. Yeah, it's not always, it may not be a privilege to you. Not everyone has that privilege to gain that kind of hands-on. Okay, but knowledge can be obtained from anywhere. It doesn't have to be hands-on knowledge. It can be knowledge by talking to people. It can be knowledge by watching watching media, videos, and then following people on social media, people advocating about animal welfare, exotic animal welfare, proper pet ownership, animal stewardship, things like that. So get as much knowledge as possible, and then later on, throughout 5 years of being at the vet school, once you have that at hand, most of the learning comes after graduating from vet school. But of course, that interest, that knowledge must be there beforehand for you to have an easy transition. Once you start working, then you find it easier for you to start to be able to practice. Although at the time, it may seem that whatever knowledge that you have may be very superficial, very fundamental, but it's okay. We all start from being fundamentals. Okay, we start from, like for example, starting from first year in the vet school, you're learning the basics. So you have to start off at the basic, have a good foundation, and that's where you build out upon that. But of course, the interest and the thirst for knowledge, I would say, keep reading, keep asking people, keep talking, and then never be satisfied with whatever knowledge that you have at the moment. Keep building on it. So the more you build on it, then the confidence comes naturally. You build up the confidence, right? So again, don't stop chasing for that knowledge, right? And in whatever field, not just exotic animal medicine, with whatever field that you plan to venture into. But yeah, so that curiosity, that interest in knowledge, that the willingness to want to go that step further to get that knowledge, that really will push you, and you will excel in life.
All right, thank you, Doctor. That was a really, really long explanation from Doctor's side. And therefore, that is a wrap, folks, for our fourth episode of the IVSA Kelantan podcast. It was an interesting topic we had today as we got to know more on the insight and experience in taking care of these exotic pets, as well as the challenges that come along with it. Unlike cats and dogs, exotic pets require extensive care that can be challenging to provide. Owners of an exotic pet need to be equipped with proper knowledge on their management and care, and additionally, owners need to be financially prepared, as what Dr. Go mentioned earlier. We hope that this podcast season will be an eye-opening to our listeners and that they can benefit from this session. Once again, thank you, Dr. Go, for taking the time to talk to us about this topic. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning into our podcast, and thank you to the team for making this podcast possible. Have a good day, everyone, and stay safe.